Everyone wants to be rich, right? It's a universal dream, the allure of wealth and the freedom it promises. We see it everywhere, on TV, in movies, and all over social media. The idea that money can solve all our problems is deeply ingrained in our minds, or at least pretend to be for a night. Dressing up in our finest, even if it's just for a fleeting moment, gives us a taste of that glamorous life. We put on our best outfits, splash on some expensive perfume, and for a few hours we feel like we belong in that world. That's what I thought anyway. Big mistake, huge. The reality check hits hard when the night ends and you're left with nothing but a hangover and a lighter wallet. It's a sobering reminder that appearances can be deceiving. My friend, we'll call her Tiffany, because, well, that's her name, scored us tickets to this swanky art gala thing. She was over the moon, convinced that this was our golden ticket to the high life. She had this infectious enthusiasm that made it impossible to say no. She said it was our chance to rub elbows with the creme de la creme, the elite of the elite, the kind of people who have their names on buildings and their faces in magazines. It was an opportunity to see how the other half lives, up close and personal. More like sour cream, am I right? The whole thing felt like a parody of high society, people trying too hard to impress, conversations that felt more like competitions, and an air of pretentiousness that was almost suffocating. Tiffany, bless her heart, she had this whole fantasy about us being mistaken for socialites. She imagined us charming our way into the inner circle, becoming the darlings of the art world. It was a nice dream, but far from reality. We'd charm a millionaire art collector, become his muses, and live out our days on a yacht in the Mediterranean. The sun, the sea, the endless luxury, it was the stuff of fairy tales. But fairy tales, as we know, are just that, tales. Yeah, okay, Tiffany, back to reality. The truth is, we were just two broke college students trying to escape our mundane lives for a night. The fantasy was fun while it lasted, but reality has a way of bringing you back down to earth. We were two broke college students with more debt than dignity. Our bank accounts were a joke and our financial situation was anything but glamorous. But sometimes, you need a little escapism to get through the tough times. But hey, a free glass of lukewarm Chardonnay? Count me in. It wasn't the high life, but it was a moment of joy in an otherwise stressful existence. And sometimes those small moments are all you need to keep going. The gala was held at this old stuffy museum, chandeliers everywhere. The kind of place that makes you feel like you should be whispering, even if you're just thinking. The air was thick with the scent of old books and polished wood, a mix that somehow felt both grand and suffocating. You know the type, where you're scared to breathe too hard in case you accidentally inhale a priceless artifact. Every step echoed, and the eyes of long-dead portraits seemed to follow you around, judging your every move. We walked in, me in my roommate's too-tight suit and Tiffany in a dress that looked like it was made out of curtains. The suit pinched in all the wrong places and I could barely move my arms. Tiffany's dress, on the other hand, was a floral monstrosity that billowed around her like a tent. We stuck out like sore thumbs. Everyone else was in sleek black tie attire, looking like they had just stepped out of a fashion magazine. We, however, looked like we had stumbled in from a costume party. Think pink flamingo in a flock of pigeons. It was impossible to blend in, and we could feel the eyes of the crowd on us, whispering and snickering behind their champagne flutes. Immediately, Tiffany starts whispering about spotting a potential patron of the arts. She had this wild idea that we could charm our way into the good graces of someone wealthy enough to fund her next big project. It was just some old guy with a monocle and a bad comb-over. He looked like he had stepped out of a different century, and not in a good way. His suit was impeccable, but his overall appearance screamed eccentric millionaire rather than art lover. He looked less like an art connoisseur, more like he was lost on his way to a Dracula convention. His pale skin and sharp features only added to the eerie vibe. We tried to blend in, which basically involved us awkwardly shuffling from painting to sculpture, pretending to understand what we were looking at. We nodded thoughtfully at abstract pieces, squinted at impressionist works, and murmured vague appreciations. But the truth was, we were completely out of our depth. The art was beautiful, no doubt, but it felt like it was speaking a language we didn't understand. We were just two imposters in a world of cultured elites, hoping no one would call us out. Now, about those free drinks. Turns out, open bar meant warm white wine in plastic cups. Not exactly the luxurious experience I had in mind when I heard open bar. I was picturing crystal flutes filled with the finest champagne, maybe even a little Dom Perignon. Instead, we got lukewarm wine that tasted like it had been sitting out for hours. The kind of wine that makes you question your life choices. Not exactly the Dom Perignon I'd envisioned. I mean, who serves warm white wine in plastic cups at a supposedly high-end event? It felt more like a college frat party than a sophisticated soiree. And the looks on people's faces said it all. Disappointment mixed with a hint of betrayal. And the food? Tiny crackers with even tinier fish eggs. They called it caviar, but it looked more like someone had accidentally spilled some fish food on a cracker. I was expecting a lavish spread, something that would make my taste buds dance with joy. Instead, I got a sad little cracker with a few salty beads on top. I think they called it caviar. Tasted like salty sadness. It was as if someone had condensed all the disappointments of life into one tiny bite. I tried to smile and pretend I was enjoying it, but my taste buds were screaming for mercy. I snuck a few mini quiche things from the buffet table when no one was looking. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? Those mini quiches were the only thing that seemed remotely edible, and I wasn't about to let them go to waste. I felt like a thief in the night, but a hungry one. Don't judge, a growing boy's gotta eat. And honestly, those mini quiches were the highlight of the evening. They were warm, cheesy, and actually tasted like food. Unlike the so-called caviar, which was more like a cruel joke. Tiffany, meanwhile, was busy trying to network. She was in her element, flitting from one group to another, trying to make connections. She had this whole speech prepared about her artistic vision, and she wasn't going to let anyone leave without hearing it. She kept cornering people and launching into this whole spiel about her artistic vision. It was impressive, really, how passionate she was. But not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Some people looked genuinely interested, while others were just trying to find a way to escape. Most just smiled politely and edged away. You could see the panic in their eyes as they searched for an excuse to leave. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. Painful, but you couldn't look away. One guy actually hid behind a sculpture, I kid you not. He saw Tiffany coming and made a beeline for the nearest piece of art. It was both hilarious and a little sad. I swear it was a bust of Julius Caesar too. The irony was not lost on me. Here we were, at an event that was supposed to be the epitome of class and sophistication, and people were hiding behind statues to avoid conversation. Talk about adding insult to injury. The whole evening was a series of unfortunate events, each one more ridiculous than the last, but hey, at least it makes for a good story, right? Section 4. Wardrobe malfunctions and other mishaps. Remember that too-tight suit I mentioned? Yeah, about that. Turns out, crouching behind a Roman emperor statue to steal quiche is not good for cheap polyester. I heard a ripping sound and prayed it was just in my head. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. I spent the rest of the night trying to subtly hold my pants together while simultaneously avoiding Tiffany, who was now convinced she'd discovered the next Michelangelo in a middle-aged woman painting watercolors of her cats. Oh, and did I mention the incident with the shrimp hors d'oeuvres and the white tablecloth? Let's just say I'm lucky I didn't end up on the evening news. Section 5. The jig is up. Things were going from bad to worse. My borrowed pants were at a critical about to burst level, and Tiffany was busy trying to convince the cat lady to let her be her agent. That's when it happened. The old guy with the monocle? He recognized me. Turns out he wasn't some eccentric art aficionado, but the owner of the pizza place where I worked part-time. He gave me this knowing look like, "I see you trying to pull a fast one, kid." I wanted to die. Right there, amidst the abstract expressionism and the pretentious canapes, my grand charade crumbled faster than a stale croissant. Section 6. Running on empty and in heels. I grabbed Tiffany, mumbled some excuse about a sudden illness, which wasn't entirely untrue considering the state of my stomach after those questionable quiche things, and we hightailed it out of there. We hailed a cab, me still clutching my pants together like my life depended on it. As we sped away from the glittering lights of the museum, I could hear Tiffany in the back seat, still rambling on about her big break in the art world. I just sighed and stared out the window. So much for charming millionaires and sipping cocktails on yachts. Tonight I'd settle for a greasy slice of pepperoni and my own sweatpants. Section 7, Riches to Rags, a lesson learned. So what did I learn from my disastrous foray into the world of high society? A few things actually. 1, never underestimate the elasticity of cheap polyester. 2, always double-check the guest list before you try to pass yourself off as someone you're not. And 3, sometimes the best nights are the ones spent in your own sweatpants watching bad TV and eating pizza. No monocle required.